So it's 6 a.m., my alarm's going off, and the very first thought going through my head is, I need some coffee. So I make my pot, drink my first cup of coffee, then it's 8:30, on my way to work, and after I drop my son off at school, my routine every single day is I stop at the Shop-it and get some more coffee because I know that I'm going to need it to get through my day. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I know everybody has this, it's just like the afternoon hits you, you just had lunch, and you're like, seriously, I still have 3 hours left on my work day, how am I going to make it through? Well, I go for a Monster, and that's how I make it through my afternoon. Does this sound familiar to you? The FDA statistics of caffeine consumption in America says that an average American consumes 300 milligrams of caffeine daily. That's equivalent to 3 espressos or 3 no-dose tablets. Patrick Hruby of the Washington Times writes, "We are one nation, under a buzz, indivisible from our next fix, with 5-hour energy shots and caffeine-spiked chewing gum for all." In this speech today, I'd like to inform you on the average daily caffeine consumption of Americans and how this affects our health and our wealth. First of all, let's talk about how caffeine consumption affects our health. Consuming up to 300 milligrams of caffeine per day is average and not necessarily harmful for you. According to the Mayo Clinic, more than 500 milligrams of caffeine a day can result in insomnia, nervousness, restlessness, irritability, stomach upset, fast heartbeat, and muscle tremors. And that's not really a huge difference going from 300 milligrams to 500 milligrams. That's a cup of coffee. I mean, that's hardly anything. And just that one extra cup of coffee could end up causing some pretty adverse effects in your health. So how much do you consume in a day? How much caffeine? Just think about how many cups of coffee you drink, how many Monsters, Red Bulls, whatever, when you go out on the weekends and you're drinking, all that stuff, all that caffeine. If you think, having a couple Red Bulls and vodka, not only do you have the caffeine, but you have the liquor as well, and that could really cause some adverse effects. So do you think that maybe you should cut back? How would you do that? If you decide to quit caffeine cold turkey, you'll probably have side effects like headaches, fatigue, irritability, and nervousness. So the best way to really eliminate caffeine or even just cut back on caffeine in your diet is to just cut out 1 beverage a day for a few days and just slowly eliminate it. Don't do it cold turkey, you're really going to regret it. Or you could switch to decaf. If you're a coffee drinker, switching to decaf, it still kind of tricks your body into thinking that you're still getting that buzz, but you're actually doing something a little bit healthier for yourself. So as we see, an overabundant consumption of caffeine can have rather adverse effects on our health. Now let's talk about how it affects the wealth of our wallets. So the average consumption, 300 milligrams, that's equivalent to 3 espressos. It costs about $2.55 for an espresso. So if you're drinking 3 of those a day, that's $7.65. The average latte, for people who aren't as hardcore and need a little milk in their coffee, the average latte costs about $4. And 3 of those a day is $12. That's almost like adding an extra meal to your day. So say you go out and buy breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's like adding a whole nother meal to your day. Mike Thomas of WealthWire says that the average American spends $20 a week on coffee alone. That equals $1,092 per year. He goes on to compare that the average yearly commuting cost is $1,476. So you're spending almost as much money on coffee and caffeine as you are on gas for the year. And everybody's always complaining about how much they have to pay for gas. So think about how much you're paying for coffee. Caffeine has some serious effects on the health and wealth of Americans today. Consuming 300 milligrams a day is average and not necessarily unhealthy, although depending on how you consume your caffeine, it can be rather expensive. Consuming 500 to 600 milligrams a day can have serious effects on your health and on your finances. In conclusion, I'd like to speak about my daily milligram intake. First of all, my 270 milligrams in morning coffee. Then my 180 milligrams in an energy drink. And after that, 120 milligrams in green tea. That's a total of 570 milligrams of caffeine that I consume on an average daily basis. Let's talk about how much that costs. First of all, this is the coffee that I buy every morning at the shop at 20 ounces. It's $1.50. Super cheap, right? But when you think about how many times I buy that, 5 times a week, that's $7.50. So then let's talk about an energy drink. Say I have one maybe 3 times a week. $2.65 for a Monster or a Red Bull. That's a total of $7.95. Then I have my $4 weekend latte, and then I pay $6 every week to get a 6-pack of these giant green teas. That's $25 a week, or $1,300 a year, which just so happens to be how much I paid for my MacBook Pro. I can tell you that definitely after doing the research for this speech and realizing how much I spend on coffee daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, I'm definitely taking some pointers and will be reducing my caffeine intake in the future. And I look forward to hearing how all of this affects y'all's lives.